Wow, it's October 2nd, 2023, and today I'm joined by a familiar face, Brian Box Brown. Welcome back. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Hanging in there.
Yeah, remind folks who may be living under a rock and for some reason don't know who you are, who exactly you are and how we can find you online.
I am a comic artist. I do the comic strip Legalization Nation, which is about the legal cannabis world and illegal cannabis world. And I'm all over. I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram as Box Brown. You can find my Legalization Nation Patreon. And right now, I'm running a Kickstarter to fund a hardcover book, which will collect the first 3 years of Legalization Nation. I can't believe I've been doing it that long. It's crazy.
Dude, straight up, it is pretty crazy.
It's nuts. It went so fast. It's funny looking back at the old ones. I feel like they're so naive. I was like so naive in
Yeah,
the beginning.
that's funny. Well, yeah, folks, if you're not aware, Legalization Nation is the best. I think I don't want to say the only, just in case we don't know about, some little comic strip maker, but it's the only one I know about right now. And it covers all things cannabis every week. Am I right? It's weekly.
Yeah, every Tuesday it comes out.
Yeah.
Coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, and you
Tomorrow
could
morning.
you can get it off the wire, as they used to say in news, by going to
Patreon.com/ Legalization Nation.
thank you. We'll have all the links in the podcast description, folks, if that makes it easier. And yeah, I just have to say, I'm really excited about this project. So, folks, if you know about Legalization Nation, go ahead and if you're able to support this Kickstarter, once again, all links will be in the podcast description so that you can. Um, this is history, and I want to see it come into a hardcover form. So, oh, I think we lost Mr. Brown. So Box Brown accidentally left the call, but we're back and we're sparking up. Um, I've got some of my favorite Legalization Nation comic strips, some recent ones, some that are favorites for a reason. You'll know why when I pull them up. But I guess I wanted to ask you at the start, and I know that I didn't prepare for you for this question, so like if we need to return to it or whatever, we can. But has there been a Legalization Nation strip that you just were like, you fucking loved it, and it didn't? I know this is a weird question, but you didn't feel it resonated as much as you thought it would?
Yeah, that does happen sometimes. It also happens like the other way too, where I'm, you know, just thinking it's just going to be like an average, strip, and then something crazy happens. Like when, like the Wiz Khalifa one, like blew up so hard, and because Wiz Khalifa commented on it.
Yeah.
Um, so that was crazy. That was a funny one.
And
Let me
remind me
look
really
through
quick, what did he comment?
it. Okay, so here's what happened. Wiz Khalifa has the with Khalifa Kush, right? Now, you know, he developed this strain in California. I actually ended up, because of the strip, talking to the breeders that bred Khalifa Kush, like the genetics and everything. And so he has like a legit situation there, but he's licensed out his brand to True Leave in a lot of states. So the way that works is, they basically, they get the genetics and grow them, and then, package them and everything. But you're selling, you know, you're getting True Leaf weed and not like Khalifa Kush from California. Um,
Right.
and so somebody called them out on Twitter, called Khalifa out about it. He's like, dude, what's this True Leaf like? You're because he was talking about being in Pennsylvania, and he's just like, he was like, oh, it's bomb weed champ or something. replied to him, and then so then I made the comic about that incident and explained like the concept of like how, because it's not just Wiz Khalifa. I mean, like the biggest perpetrator here is Mike Tyson. I mean, like he's in every state, like which is it's weird. Like you can be a celebrity and send your stuff everywhere, under your celebrity whatever, your celebrity name or whatever. And but you can also like there's so that's like a little bit distasteful, whatever. Like it's just like they don't even care. They just want the brand out there, like Mike Tyson's ear candy that he his that type of thing. And but it's even more distasteful, I think, when it's I was talking to the guy his brand's called Heisman, Ricky Williams, right? So Ricky Williams has the Heisman brand, and I was talking to the guy on DMing with the guy on Instagram, and he's telling me like they made a point not to work with MSOs like in California. Like it's not like they use Cresco in California because there's like so many other, or like Oregon, like there's plenty of small farmers and stuff, but they wanted to be in Pennsylvania so bad that they just like gave up on that whole concept of not working with MSOs. And I was like, if you really cared that much about this, you would say, I'm not going to enter the Pennsylvania market until some local, like Wiz Khalifa, that could have been like a big thing, or he's saying, I'm not going to come into my home state because it's all corporations. But instead, he just jumps right in bed and pretends like it's not a thing. Like, and I think it's kind of like, false advertising in a way, because like you're not really getting what, you're not getting the Wiz Khalifa Kush from California. If you take those two bags and put them next to each other, they're not going to smell anything like each other. But so there's that going on, but it's also brands doing it, right? So like there's some brands in California that have just gotten big, and then license their stuff out to True Leave to be. This is happening mostly in Florida, right? Where you know True Leave sells uh, uh, Blue River terps rosin in Florida or whatever. But like in California, they're like this like super legitimate rosin company that they remember they had rosin flan. It was called. It was like super expensive, fucking California shit. And then they're in Florida, but it's True Leaf. I mean, even if they came in and brought all the genetics, told them the SOPs, which I'm sure that's not happening. They're just doing whatever the hell they want. There's no way that they're doing it. First of all, there's no way they can maintain the quality because of the way True Leaf operates. But also, even if they did all the SOPs properly, if they're using True Leaf drone weed, it's not like it's the bomb weed they're using in California. And so
Yeah.
like I don't think they care that they're diluting their brands and stuff, because like it's people are kind of like too ignorant of what's going on. They just like see the brand, they're like, oh yeah, I had that. They have that by me, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Imagine if that was the experience you'd have with Coca-Cola. Like,
right? Exactly. Like a Coca-Cola in California was great, and one in Illinois was like the grossest thing in the world.
yeah, you were like, what the fuck is this?
There's no
It's like orange
consistency.
soda or something, like, you know what I mean? Like just totally not what you would
It would
expect.
be like flat. Like,
Right. Right.
yeah. Um, that's a good point. A good way to look at it, because that type of thing, it's really like distasteful, and also a little, not to like you know find joy in others' misfortune, but like after I talked to the Ricky Williams people about this, and I was like, you shouldn't have come in, blah blah blah. Why get in bed with an MSO? Their company they were working with dropped them, like, and just like a bad habit, like got rid
Yeah.
of them, and now it's like not doing these celebrity brands, like, and just tossed them out. So I can't say I didn't warn them not to get in bed with the wrong people, but like, you know,
Yeah. No, straight up, straight up. You know, a funny example that I like from Illinois, and I'm even going to plug somebody who's been on my podcast in the past. So check out this label that's on the cannabis that this guy is reviewing. And this is a common, to your point, this like
mm,
leads to more confusion. So this brand is called Fig Farms, and this is in Illinois. It's on sale in
uh,
Illinois, and it says California cannabis.
wow.
I mean,
So I mean, so it's just people buying it, being like, "Oh, this is shit from California."
that's what everybody think. Like I don't
Right?
mean to say everybody thinks, but when I talk to a layman, like a somebody who they're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I just bought some California cannabis, you
Cali
know.
weed. Yeah. No, I mean, I know that we're not following federal law here, so
Right.
there's a lot of things that they can get away with that they couldn't if we were. But like, there's a lot of false advertising going on in the legal weed space. Like, there's a lot of the media constantly talks about like the fake packaging in the illicit spaces, and packaging that looks like Doritos and all this stuff like that. But like you said, like literal there's no definition for a lot of the things we think of as like definitive things. Like, there's no definition of like live resin. They could
Right.
say they could put live resin on the box. It could be anything. Like, that's just like a marketing term. Like, there's no like legal definition. Live resin is blah 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 blah. You know, made from the live whole plant, whatever, in this particular fashion. There's nothing like that. So you can just say anything, make it from any kind of weed, whatever, say live resin on the side. All that stuff is that we think of as like they're saying what the product is. It would be like saying this is a banana or something
Well,
like
like
that.
for example, you can't look, you could fool me if you put two glasses in front of me and one of them was a whiskey and one of them was a bourbon and you said
Mhm.
both of them were bourbon, but
Right.
technically speaking, from what I understand, there is a legal definition of bourbon that it's like it was I
Yeah.
about said grown in Kentucky, but
Yeah.
brewed in Kentucky in a
Yeah.
certain type of
Aged.
barrel.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to call it what it is. I mean, so there's a lot of this stuff in cannabis. There's just like you can say anything pretty much because none of the stuff is like legally defined. Like, exactly like that California cannabis right on the label is so deceptive. you know.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I mean, I know it. It's funny though, when I see places doing it the other way, where it'll be like Illinois grown weed, and it's just like all the weed in Illinois has to be grown in Illinois. Like, there's no
Right.
other choice. As I always think that's funny. Like, I was looking at a Vermont dispensary. Vermont, by the way, has a lot of great indie dispensaries, and it's like all indie people. I mean, there are a few big companies operating, but all the new companies are up and running. There's a lot of good stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Uh, but I was looking at some company in Vermont, and they were like, "Yeah, Vermont grown, locally grown." And I was like, "Yeah, all of it is locally grown by
Right.
law. Like, in every state, it has to be like that."
Right. That'll be the day when it's like you can get some
Yeah.
Oregon cannabis or
Yeah,
something
when
like that.
it says California cannabis, then it means something. And it's like when you go buy, when you're buying wine, and you're like, I want whatever Sonoma Valley wines or whatever
Yeah.
particular regions of wines, because even though you don't know the brands, you're just like, oh, this region is known for its wine, so it must be pretty good. Like, if, at some point when there's a national market, people are going to be like,
You
it's
want a
fun.
funny one that you probably wouldn't have even liked since you're not from Illinois. There's this one brand, it's called 93 Boys,
Uh,
and it says it's Chicago made, I believe, on the label, but it's look where it's grown. Chicago's up here. It's grown right here in Southern Illinois.
it's so far away from
Yeah,
from
it's from
Chicago.
Anna. I mean, it's literally almost Yeah, so
It's like
Chicago's up
as
here.
far away from Chicago as you could possibly be and still be in Illinois.
I know, right? Yeah.
So, but is that a so? What? How many? So, what's going on exactly in Illinois? I'm a little bit behind on because a lot of things have changed in the last 6 months in Illinois,
Yeah.
right?
Well, no, not really. I
Not
mean, not
really.
not
There's a lot
much.
of news all the time, but
Yeah, not much is really going on. I mean, there are some establishments opening up, and I believe there's going to be another licensing round for craft cultivators, but it's really stagnant. And actually, I
right.
think one of the biggest conversations that's going on right now relates to one of the uh, strips that I picked. So that's a good way to, keep plugging Legalization Nation. Right now, towards the end of this month, there's going to be a veto session, and the big focus, a lot of the conversation surrounding cannabis right now, to answer your question, is about hemp and hemp derived
Okay. Right.
products.
Right. 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 That's up
Yeah.
around in New York and New Jersey and stuff too. There.
Yeah, so I thought I'd share one of your comics that is pretty relevant to it. You just mentioned New Jersey. Folks, in case you didn't understand, we are showing some comics right now. So if you want to see the video version of this podcast, there's a link in the description. There's also all the other links we mentioned in the description as well. But you can go to the video version if you look in the episode description for this episode. Box, do you want to read this comic for folks that might still be
Yeah.
listening?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. As the legal hemp market explodes with psychoactive synthetic cannabinoid products, people are starting to take notice. So there's like a dude walking into a Delta dispensary and he's like, "Hey, check this out." That's actually based on a real place in my neighborhood that's right next door to an ice cream place,
I
and it's
love it.
open like it's open 7 days a week, like 8 to 11. The hemp dispensary. Anyway, um, most recently, it's the New Jersey Cannabis Trade Organization, whose members include Curaleaf, TerraSen, Columbia Care, Green Thumb Industries, Verano, and a few others. NJCTO blames poor sales and slow growth on the wild, unregulated hemp market. So this is, if you know what's going on in New Jersey, this is so ridiculous. Like the slow growth is because they're not doing shit. There's like there's no new people, so they have no there's no motivation for all the companies that exist to do anything. The weeds are really really expensive. So like basically nothing changed. Well, very little changed from when it was just medical only. Like the same people that were going and getting their medical cards are the same people that are buying the legal weed. Everybody that wasn't is just still not buying legal weed
Right.
because it's still so expensive and not enough dispensaries, not enough weed, etc. So, but they're blaming the poor sales on the hemp competition. And so the New Jersey Regulatory Commission agrees. One main issue they cite is that it's more affordable than NJ's legal weed. So now here's the so this is the regulatory commission. And they're like, yeah, we do need to regulate hemp because it's so much cheaper than our weed. Like they can't compete. Like, no, they can just compete. So it's like lower
Right.
your prices. You're actually offering like the legal weed dispensaries are literally offering a better product. Like even though like we talk shit about all like the legal the corporate weed and stuff, like I will say I'll go on the record saying that it's better than hemp sprayed on like hemp weed. They supposedly have the real deal and they're worried about hemp. It's so funny. So to recap, the trade group lobbied against their own admitted competition, and now regulators are considering big changes. And the cop was like, "Drop the hemp, a shotgun." But the hemp is cheaper because the market is open to the working class. It's not limited to a few well-funded people, and it's available everywhere, and it's a competitive market. And so, if the hemp market is seen as competition, corporate cannabis could always consider competing with them on quality and price instead of lobbying to eliminate them via statute, which is like what they're used to, right?
Yeah.
They're used to being the only game in town. this is happening in New York too, where they are the trade organization in New York, which is almost all these same people, um, is suing the state of New York because but all right, so they got together with disabled veterans
Right.
that and they're mad that they are not getting like preferential treatment like a social equity uh person would be. And so we have these two, few disabled veterans, and then also GTI Pharmacan Acreage and Curaleaf. Like it's them. So they're the ones funding the whole thing. And they got these disabled veterans, which listen, optics wise, that's a great front to have. You got this, who doesn't want the disabled veterans to like,
Yeah, and
you
I
know,
love in your visual here, you've literally got the veterans here, and then they're behind them with the tanks and the jets.
yeah. I mean, you know, so now like all of the social equity businesses are on hold until this so this happened in Illinois too, right? Like didn't
Yeah, this all
but
sounds so familiar. I know that
right.
people listening right now, they're just like, "Oh my God, we're not the only ones."
Yeah, so the social equity businesses were stuck because of a court order for a long time, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
so that's basically the same thing that's happening here. And so, all these big companies are mad because the state of New York, when they set this up, they wanted to give these social equity businesses first shot at the market and like let them be open for like a year or two, before the big companies, which who are already there in the medical market. Uh, so to give them time before the big companies became went adult use. And so now the social equity businesses are suing the state of New York because they have given them a runaround and have been unable to fund them and slow to work with them and like promise them a lot more things than they're receiving and are you know forcing them to use specific construction companies and things like that. And it's all kinds of nonsense. So that's like so they're all suing the state for that reason. And then the big boys are also suing the state for them even having a social equity business. So, and in the meanwhile, so all of this, right? All of these problems, which are so complex and dumb, and they always kind of get they when they try to fix these, they fix it by making it more complex. Like and really what they need to do is go to the regulations and the systems and take an axe to them, really like take a chainsaw to most of it. I
Yeah.
remember like Obama talked about using a scalpel to like change budget shit, and I'm like, no, you need a chainsaw for this because like it's all of the nonsense happens because we're treating it like some other thing besides like a regular product that people would want to buy. And so, and you look at the hemp market, right? The hemp is treated like any other product. It's treated like, you know, coffee or something like that. And so if you want to open a coffee shop, listen, I know there's a lot of people out there like it's not easy to open a coffee shop. I tried to open a coffee shop, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to start a small business. Now imagine starting that small business, but also you have like $1 million worth of
Right.
extra extra, you know, money you have to spend to make sure you're up to code, not building codes, but cannabis regulation codes, like
Mhm.
making sure that you're hooked up into the metric system and you have your cameras pointed in the exact spots they need to be, and you have your security on premises, and all these different things, these hoops that make people jump through. um Also, you're jumping through all these local regulatory hoops because they've given in pretty much every state except for a few, they give local control. Local townships have so much power, so like once you've done jumping through all the state hoops, now you got to figure out how to deal with the local township, which is often even more obnoxious to deal with. And like in New Jersey, like something like 70% of the state or 60% of the state opted out of cannabis. So now your only options to open are you have to be in one of these, 30% of the state that even allows cannabis businesses. And then those businesses, so I always talk about like there's opt out and there's opt in. And in some
Right.
ways, the people that opt in end up being more of a problem than the people that opt out entirely, because they seize that moment to exploit the cannabis companies just as much as the states do. So I'm always like, they should have opt out, fine, if you want to opt out. But if you opt in, you can't like choke out you can't exploit the industry at that point. Like, so you're in control in the sense that, hey, if you don't want cannabis businesses, you don't have to have them. But if you have them and they're following state laws and regulations, you got to let them open, or else it because it's discriminatory, really.
Hmm.
They're using the state to discriminate against a particular business, because of the stigma associated with it.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. You touched on a few different points I want to get back to. One of them, just to, paint an example from Illinois, you said like all of the extra things. It's hard enough to start a business. All of the extra things, I look at them as almost like unneeded things. They're just
Yeah. Mhm.
extraneous barriers to entry. Let me give a few examples from Illinois, like the original licenses that were proposed. And this is when we were not talking social equity. So I think it's important to lay out that context,
Mhm.
um, because it is different nowadays. But let's just talk like the original licenses. For dispensaries, it was proposed that there would be a $5,000 non-refundable fee. You have to provide proof of $400,000 in assets. You
Oh
pay a
yeah.
$30,000 permit fee, a yearly renewal fee of $25,000. And then for cultivation centers, that was dispensaries. For
Right.
cultivation centers, $25,000 non-refundable application fee. You have to prove you have $250,000 in liquid assets. You pay $200,000 upon approval, and your yearly renewal fee is $100,000
$100,000 a year.
a
And then they
year.
wonder why people don't enter the legal market. It's like, Jesus Christ, I have to have $250,000 in liquid cash just to even be considered.
Yeah.
Or I could have $1,000 in liquid cash and start a business out of my house and just deliver weed, buy bulk weed and sell it. I mean, it's just like, you know, the places, if you look at the country and the legal markets, the places that have the best weed have the lowest barriers to entry. It's just
Yeah.
like a fact of a fact. Like in Maine, right? So Maine is benefiting from the caregiver system. Um, and so the medical system in Maine started in 1997, a really long time ago, like right after
Whoa.
like right after the California law, the Maine law passed. And there's no dispensaries in 1997. Like all you could do was have a caregiver. Somebody grows weed at their house on their property, in Maine, where it's just like everybody has like a farm or whatever, or it just didn't matter. You could just grow weed wherever, be a caregiver. You're a licensed caregiver. You're growing, medicine for people. And then they also expanded at some point where they have dispensaries. And if you are a licensed caregiver, which is like a $1,500 a year license, you can grow weed at your house, in your basement or wherever, on your outside or whatever you want to do, and sell it in dispensaries in Maine. And so like the Maine medical market is amazing. It's like the one of the most superior markets in the country. And I was recently in Oregon, in Portland, and which is also there's a lot of options in the legal market there, but I still think I still got the feeling when I was there that the majority of the really good shit was still outside of the legal market.
Yeah.
Um, and when I look, when I think about like the main operators, like the the caregivers are legal, but they operate almost like the way uh traditional market operators operate because it's so
Hmm.
simple. You know what I mean? And so that's why that market is great. And that's also why they don't have the metric, they don't have seed to sale. It's like so uncomplicated. So that's why there's tons of great weed there. Just like you can operate and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And in Vermont, I have to say the adult use market in Vermont, I've happily surprised at how much of the illegal operators were formerly in the traditional market for a really long time and now have become legal operators. And they're like, you know, not like CEO millionaire dudes. It's just like,
Right.
I was hanging out at the hash maker, we're just doing tabs in this dude's backyard, and whatever. It was like we're chilling. It's probably like your age or something like that, but he's a legal operator, and
And this almost
that
ties into, I'm about to display I
yeah
think this is what
yeah
you're talking about. Um,
yeah. It's like the thing is like if you're allowed every small business that exists at some point starts in the home. It starts like as an idea, you start getting your shit together. You don't immediately start shelling out for office space or factory space or anything like that. You start very simple. And this is the step that has been taken away in cannabis, that you can't start at your house. Like I can't elite, in the traditional market, I could set up an entire delivery system set up in my basement, no problem. So all you're doing is buying low and selling high. I mean, like there's literally no difference there. Um, and there's no reason like that the legal market couldn't really be the same way. You just be buying state weed, but like you should be able to buy in bulk if you want to, and find your own clients and do provide a service. Like why are they're hamstringing the business from the start? Oh, I wanted to say I remembered I have an answer to your question where what is where you thought it would get.
yeah.
So I would notice that if I ever do a comic that is about a situation where there was like a positive step or like a win, it does poorly. Like it doesn't get shared as much as the ones that are about problems or issues.
Mm,
So I did a comic about in Mendocino County. There's the Mendocino County thing. I could go spend hours talking about this. It's the same situation where Prop 215, you know, like the main law, was very liberal and it had allowed a lot of people to operate. And when they switched over to the new law, 64, it the regulations put tons of people out of business and the taxes. Just like it decimated the market. It
hmm.
literally, like so many people went out of business. And so and these all Mendocino County, which is right just south, I believe. I don't know where I don't want to say where it is. I'm not sure, but Mendocino County, obviously well known cannabis grow for area for a very long time. Mendo breath, like that's
Right.
Mendocino County. Um, and it was all messed up because of the county, Mendocino County, had all these crazy uh, hoops that they wanted people to jump through, and everybody was going out of business. And Humboldt's dealing with the same situation now, and uh, these guys, the Mendocino Cannabis Alliance and a few other groups, actually had a little bit of a victory where the state is forcing the county to fix the whole thing up, and they're gonna actually have a little win. And I think that probably got like half as many shares as as the ones about like the DUI or something like that. It's just like bad news travels faster, I think.
Yeah, gets people fired up, makes people want to share it
Yeah,
and be like, hey, what the fuck, you
but
know?
this that situation there is still bad. I mean, the same
Yeah.
situation thing is going on in Humboldt, which is just right by there, and it's the same thing. It's weird. California is getting it like uh, they're like in shock of what's going on, kind of because it's since Prop 64, it's they were operating under a totally different situation, and then Prop 64 is basically not too dissimilar. I mean, aside from you know because there were so many businesses already operating in
Yeah.
California, it's not that dissimilar from what is going on in Illinois in terms of um, the regulatory situation. It's just that there's such a bigger market in
Right.
California. There's a lot of differences as well. But now these guys who are not used to this are now suddenly dealing with these regulations that we're dealing with from the start. Like they're
Hmm.
we can't even businesses here can't even get off the ground, but in California they're already running and getting taken down by these regulations, which is in a way more tragic because they've had so much investment in the local scene for so long, 20,
Yeah.
30, forever. It's like people have been growing up there forever.
Yeah.
Like that's where all the weed like in America, like the best weed in America is coming from.
Right. That's why stories like that make me especially sad. I always think that weed's gonna find a way, and I hope it does. But stories like that make me sad because it's like you said, like left untouched, that was the ideal place to get cannabis. And
Yeah,
then
and
it's
it's
like
just been
government gets their grubby hands on it. It's just
and
like,
it's just destroyed it. It's just awful. I mean, and the California people are also, the taxes in California are legit, and
mhm.
it the taxes being so high in California also is what leads so many California businesses to backdoor product to the rest of the country to make up that tax money. And so
Right.
like the whole country is all worried about, illegal weed, illegal grows, all this stuff. And it it it's being they're being pushed in a way to do it by the tax situation in California. I mean, it's just a mess. I mean, it's just like there's nobody I think that is like looking at this from a broad perspective. I mean, there is a lot of people actually, but like not the people that are in charge. I mean, like they're willing to make the same mistakes hundreds of times in a row all the time. It seems like, they're not mistakes. I mean, like it's you
Yeah.
know, they're doing this all on this is just the way it goes.
Right.
And so
It's
I
it's
mean it's like this is a front seat to like corruption in America. I mean, like we're watching it happen like from the beginning of this business, whereas in other businesses it's already been corrupted like we're since time immemorial. It's just that this is a new thing, and we're
mhm.
watching it get corrupted from
Yeah.
the start.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it, but they said that this is the biggest like gap in federal and state policy since like slavery,
Yeah, I not no doubt. I mean,
you
like
know. And so this is
it.
coming online, and like you say, it's not been corrupted yet. Sorry,
Yeah,
you
I
were
mean,
gonna say
like
though.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you see stuff and you're like, this is, I get like some glimmers of hope here and there. You see stuff, some places where you're like, oh, well, New Mexico seems to be allowing people to get involved. And then it's always like the states where there's really like no people that they actually are like, oh, we can have a little bit an actual industry here and people will come here and like it'll be a big boon to our economy.
Yeah,
And then
like
the states
Oklahoma
where,
blows my mind.
yeah,
It's just like
Oklahomans
what?
were like, okay, sure, we're just gonna play. It's Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
I know, and it's so funny because it's like Oklahoma and Texas, like a lot of similar culture, right? Yet Texas is like so anti-weed. They're like so like far. in the behind like the rest of not the rest of the country, because there's a lot of states that are behind, but we're
No,
pretty
but
far behind
yeah.
Texas. Meanwhile, Oklahoma's like 20 years ahead. It's like right there. It's just hilarious, kind of. Texas is kind of surrounded by illegal states now, though.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because New Mexico's right there, and Oklahoma's up here.
Yeah, I think like you say, the common trend, it seems like places like that, and it's not always a guarantee that you'll find it within the legal market. The good example you gave is Oregon. Like just because there's, it's free and some people point to it as wild, wild west, it doesn't mean that the legal market still will have, you know, uh great product. But I think the biggest thing with like leniency, as you point out, it seems like what consistently comes out of that, if you just let people fucking do it, is that it's better. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it becomes a great. I mean, and it becomes better for everyone. Like the prices come
Hmm.
down. It supports a lot of small businesses instead of like five enormous businesses. Um, there's a lot of people coming in and out, competition in the market, um, better product, better prices, like
Yeah.
uh, you know, tourism, and you think about like um, people go to if you have a choice to go to Maine or New Hampshire, let's say, on your vacation. You can go to Maine where there's like the best weed in the world, and then in New Hampshire where it's like no weed at all. It's like I don't even know if they have. I mean, they know they have a medical market, but it's not very accessible. That live free or die thing stops at cannabis.
Right.
There's like die.
Yeah.
I guess I'll die. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I think I don't know if it's a comic that you've said, but somebody put it really short. They're like, when you make the business itself or just the process itself competitive instead of the application process and the freaking regulations, like if you make it just so that pencil pushers can make it in, then you're gonna have pencil pushers growing your weed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't
Yeah.
mean to
Yeah.
say like
Yeah.
that sounds derogatory. I don't know. That sounded weird to
No,
say,
no,
but
that's what it is. I mean, like, look at the markets that are like, look at New Jersey, look at Illinois. I mean, look at it's the proof is in the pudding. I mean, like, you can just look at it, just be like, ugh.
and one of the things that you've covered, I'm about to share another one of your comics that I particularly like am saddened by, is the it seems like the answer to it seems like some of the big guys answer or some of the operators answer to this problem that they call unlicensed cannabis or the traditional market is to use the criminal law against it, against those
Yeah,
people.
right.
And I really
Yeah,
think history is just not going to reflect well on this
yeah. I mean,
tactic.
this is the thing in New York too. It's like the unlicensed shop. People in weed will talk shit about the unlicensed weed stores in New York. Like these are
Yeah.
people that smoke weed. They'll be like, there's tons of fucking illegal weed stores. They have shitty weed. What are they doing? Blah blah blah. In my mind, these illegal weed stores are like putting up the most effective protest of the cannabis laws, because especially in New York, there's a bunch of places where there's just like five locations. They're just like shoving it right. Like
Yeah.
they have billboards, and like they don't give a fuck. They're like, fuck you. Like this is how it should be. It's fucked up. Like there's no look at us. Like if you look at like Empire cannabis clubs, they're like, look at what we're doing. Like we're running a dispensary that is operating like it's normal, like it's just like everybody else. Why are you pushing us out? So outside, out of state companies can come in and take that location. Like you're kicking people out of the state. You're taking the best locations from the working class and giving them to the billionaire class. I mean, it's just like so. All those those bodegas and shit, like fucking, that's the way it should be. Those guys are the ones that are selling all the pipes and the freaking goddamn. Since I was like 17 and 16 years old, I was like going into New York to get glass pipes and shit. way back in the day. And you'd go to the bodega and it had like a million glass pipes and shit. And you just walk in, you buy your glass pipe. They know the cannabis customer. Like, why should they not be? They're catering to the cannabis customer. Like, that's their customer base is the cannabis customer, and you're not allowing them to sell weed.
Right.
Like what is it's nonsensical. And
Right.
so you see a lot of fear mongering surrounding it, where it's like, oh, it's all mafia run, after Chinese mafia, Middle Eastern mafia, like, which, I don't doubt that there is some like organized crime shit involved here, but there's like thousands of dispensaries at this point, illegal bodega dispensaries and stuff like that running in New York. They're not all run by the mob. Like that just like would be defy logic because there's so many of them. So many of them are just small businesses. This is a bodega. Bodega is by definition like the most fucking quintessential small business. Like it's like a little shop.
And as you've said, they've been selling us by us, I mean stoners, everything short of weed for all
Yeah,
these years.
like they have every rolling paper imaginable
Right.
forever.
Snacks,
Yeah,
fucking, you
like
know.
why? It's just like it's so. I don't see any reason why all of them shouldn't be selling weed. Why not?
Yeah.
Eventually, the market will cool off. I mean, cool off. I
Right.
mean, it's not going to last forever, but like,
Exactly. It'll sort itself out,
right,
you
the
know?
market's going to even itself out. And people that make this argument in every single other avenue of business, that the invisible hand of the free market will handle everything, except the same people will make this same argument that they needed heavy regulations on cannabis. Same people that say that we need no regulations on things like, you know, uh, fossil fuel shit and like all other kinds of things like that. We don't need any regulations for miners or people doing mountaintop removal to get fracking, all this stuff. Those guys, let them do whatever they want. They'll do whatever. But weed, we need heavy regulations on these guys because, why? Whatever. Because of stigma.
Yeah. And to your point, to start to close us out, it's funny, Box, is that I was like, there's a really good box brown. We were talking about basically this exact topic on a show with a professor from Southern Illinois University. And I was like, oh, there's a really good Box Brown comic on this. And I looked it up, and I promise you, I didn't do this purposefully, but today I am doing it purposefully. I'm bringing it back up. I love that the first panel is I recently appeared on the Chillinois podcast, but I promise you, the reason I brought it up was so what we were just talking about. We want to vote with our dollars, but cannot legally do it until everyone is on the ballot. I love that, dude.
Yeah. I mean, because that's what it is, man. We're that's what they tell us to do in every other thing. Let the free market sort it out. If you don't like that, don't buy that. Don't go there. It'll be gone. If they're doing stuff that is bad for the consumer, they'll be gone sooner or later. But if there's no way to and no other person to vote with your dollars. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I want to just play a small clip, an audio clip from a person that is actually now a licensed operator in the state of Illinois. And they explained to me from their perspective the difference between limited license states and open markets, which is kind of what we were just talking about. And I think you're just going to love how like kind of bluntly they put this.
Okay.
So let's check this out.
Perspective, from the consumer's perspective, a limited license market generally is not a good thing. So I'll say that. So like for the consumer, is like it's better to have tons of competition. I think in general, although maybe there's an argument for it still, but tons of competition or at least tons of licenses, and then the best folks sort of like at the end of the day they win, other folks get shaken out. From a wealth building perspective, it's better to have a limited license market because then the license is intrinsically valuable. Whereas if it's like anybody can get it, there's no like intrinsic value to the license, no economic value, no intrinsic economic value to the license. But when there's only like 10 or 20, you can ensure that at least whoever gets them can at least make some money. And there's a certain amount of competitive advantage you have where, like we're in the market we're in now, you can only go to so many places. And so it's not great for the consumer because then the prices are kind of high, everything else. But for the business, it's like, we can almost not go out of business because you can only go so many places. So you got to come here.
Yeah.
Yes, it's horrible.
Isn't that interesting
ridiculous.
to hear it put so like bluntly? Like he acknowledges that an open market's better from a consumer perspective, but I love how he put it. It's like if it's limited though, you only have so many places, so like we're not going to go out of business.
Yeah, no shit. 5 people aren't going to go out of business. In an unlimited license, you're extending that wealth to hundreds of thousands, like anybody. You're in the limited license, you're concentrating all the wealth in a very small group of people and limiting the market entirely. Over, the overall growth of the market.
Mm-hmm.
In an open market, you're expanding that wealth to the rest of the people, the working class, the people that you want to raise up.
Right.
Right. I mean, he's basically, pointing out that limited licensure is like trickle down economics. I mean, like you're giving all the money to the 5 people at the top and hoping that somehow that benefits the consumer or like the working class in some way, and it's just not possible.
Yeah, and just actually, to your point earlier, you asked how things are going in Illinois. I have another short clip that it touches on exactly what you talked about. So our governor has said that, these limitations on licenses, that's not a bug, that's a feature. And high prices of product,
Wait,
that's
say
not.
that again.
Oh yeah. So our governor recently gave a speech, right? And he addressed concerns about limited licenses. And he said, the thing is, if we limited the licenses for a purpose to section off, well, how about, I'm just going to play the clip. You're going to love this because it's exactly what we were just talking about. It's very short. So
we did the right thing. And we're still managing through that. And there are people who still complain that we ought to have more and more licenses issued daily. And the reality is that by holding back, we've really left a portion of the market still available for social equity license holders so that when they enter the industry, they enter it in a profitable way. I'm proud of that. It would be easy to just allow existing systems rooted in tradition to leave people out. It would just be easy to do it the old-fashioned way, to come into existence as they always have. It's much, much harder to build something that is making a difference and pushing against the grains of the past. But that's what we're doing here in Illinois, and I'm proud of it. Creating
nonsense. It's just, that's so hard to listen to, difficult to listen to.
Isn't it? And I just, the key word here is you limit it so that you leave a portion of the market so that people can enter it in a profitable way.
When are they going to enter it?
Well, that's the $1 million question.
You limit it so that they never can get it. And you just hold it in front of them like a fucking carrot. Be like, oh, we're going to give this to you at some point. We're going to give this to you at some point. And then just don't do it. And then you're like, oh, I'm so proud of myself for doing this amazing thing where I'm helping out so many social equity entrepreneurs by never letting them enter the market and watching them waste their life savings for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Good job, dude.
It's just interesting, the idea that another advocate put it in a newspaper. They said very shortly, social equity is market share.
Yeah.
They said it's not the number of licenses issued, it's market share. We should be entitled to a market share. And I'm just like, I guess I can get down with that if the enforcement mechanism is not the criminal law. And
Yeah.
I know that that sounds crazy. I know that it just
Mm.
sounds like I advocated for a limited license market, but if the enforcement mechanism is not the criminal law, then in my opinion, the traditional market will still flourish because it,
Yeah, I mean, I think that like
you know,
market share, I don't think they're guaranteed. Nobody's guaranteed market share.
right.
It's about but it is about the opportunity for market share. And right now there's no opportunity for at all. I mean, even in places where they like I look at like New Jersey where you can apply for a license, anybody can apply. It's a ridiculously expensive and long process that'll take forever, and you'll be run around nonstop for just like you'll be in regulatory hell for maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years. So the the opportunity technically is there, but it's not. Whereas if there was a situation where opening up was, feasible, and you could apply for your license, even if the license was 20,000, $30,000 for to apply and get your license. But if you apply and you have all your shit together in 6 months, you can open your doors and if that or less or whatever, and it was guaranteed. Like that's you can almost say fine, charge whatever for the licenses, but let them open. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna if you're gonna charge a lot for these licenses and make it just impossible and make them spend all their money, you have to
Right.
spend all of your money to before you can open. Like you spend everything. You have to build because there's no infrastructure. Like I would say, like if you wanted to open up like a barber shop, which requires infrastructure, you need chairs and mirrors and all this shit. You don't have to find an empty space and like buy all that stuff. You could find a barber shop
Right.
that's going out of business or has gone out of business and buy that, and all the infrastructure's there.
Mhm.
There's no way for you to go, all right, I'm gonna buy a dispensary that is going out of business because it doesn't exist yet. Everybody has to build from scratch. And so these people, it's going to be like messed up because like these people, the first people that get out there, a lot of them are just going to go broke, and they're going to have fire sales, selling the businesses and stuff. And then the second round of people are going to maybe be in better position because they're going to get that cheap infrastructure. But that second round of people always ends up being like Curaleaf because they want to expand their licensure.
Right.
And so like that's what happens all the time. Like so a lot of the New York gave out all these hemp licenses, and a lot of those businesses sold their licenses. They sold to big California money. In California, all the small businesses sell to Glass House because they can stack licenses that way.
Right.
And so that's the path here. It's that you're going to see like this whole wave of small business entrepreneurs get into the cannabis business, lose tons of money, lose their life savings, go bankrupt. There's no federal protection. It's actually not bankruptcy. I learned this recently. When a cannabis company goes out of business, they don't go bankrupt because
Right.
there's no federal bankruptcy protection for a cannabis business. They just
Mhm.
become insolvent. So these people like that are spending all this money to open up a dispensary in wherever New Jersey, they open it up, they build all the infrastructure, they start building clientele, they get killed, some run out of money, overhead, etc. Maybe the business doesn't take off, they have to sell all this MSO weed, so it's like maybe they don't have the best products, etc. Business goes out of business. Who do they sell to? Curaleaf, who is expanding their footprint. And so it ends up not even being small business that benefits from the pioneer work that the early businesses do. It ends up being the MSOs that benefit anyway.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I wanna wrap up here, but I
Yeah, I
wanted
could
to
talk about this all night. So
no, I had a few. I was just gonna say I wanted to run like this idea by you that I've been kind of percolating for a while, but I feel like a creative like you might be able to help refine this. And obviously not now. We can talk about it, offline in the future. But it's like this idea that like everything we've been talking about, right? Um,
Hmm.
you look at somebody like I always like to use the example of like Tommy Chong or Cheech and Chong, but lately I've
Okay.
also been using like, those like I can like say this and I feel like you're gonna be able to picture it, like those old hippie, um, I almost said riots, but protests because they were never
Yeah.
riots.
Right.
Protests where it's like free the plant, all this
Sure.
stuff.
Sure.
And I like to, when we talk about like what's going on nowadays, I like to bring those people up because I'm like, this is not what those people had in mind. And but
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it like funny and sharp. So I like try to think of like Tommy Chong. He's like, traveling with Cheech back in the day. And he's like, I want it to be legal, but we still need to have like possession limits because
Right.
or
Like
like
have them be like, oh yeah, like that's some hippie being like, yeah, legalize it, man, but only allow a couple big businesses to
thank
sell
you.
it. You know what I'm
That's
saying? Like
literally the next example I was going to use.
the
Yeah.
sad fact is that a lot of the people that run these big, huge businesses that are, actually they're probably like a lot of them retired. It's probably like the people funding a lot of the stuff were those hippies, like my dad's age type people. Like
Yeah.
those are the people that have all the shitloads of money now and like made the markets look like this, which is fucked up. Anyhow, yeah. Anyway, so let me just plug one more time the Legalization Nation Kickstarter. Get yourself a nice hardcover book collecting 156 strips. While we were doing this podcast, we jumped over 14,000.
Hey,
So we're getting close. Uh, 56% funded, but we could always use your help to get a Legalization Nation hardcover book and there's t-shirts, corporate mids t-shirt and some sticker pack. I even got Grab Labs donated these little hook hitters that are like kind of somewhere
yeah,
between a one hitter and a fat bowl. And check it out. And it helps support
absolutely.
indie comics, weed media.
Yeah, support cannabis history because that's why I'm very excited about this, man. You've done a great job over the years. I can't believe it has been 3. I can't believe I'm not you're gonna see my name pop up tonight. I'm going to become a patron. You should too. Go to patreon.com/legalization nation. And there's a few different memberships. I recommend clicking on this one because it looks like this is the one that gets you access immediately to comics and behind the scenes posts as they drop, which is super fucking cool. So folks, once again, support your local, I about said local artists, but support your artists, support cannabis media, like you said. And I guess just to end this, I wanted to ask you, when you cover this stuff, and as you said earlier, it seems like only the negative stuff gets track. People say that a lot of my coverage is negative because I'm constantly talking about these things,
Right.
and I don't intend it to be negative. I intend it to be like this is the world I want it to be. So, do you deal with that at all?
Yeah. Or you're like, oh God, I'm constantly like looking at this in such a horrible way. Yeah, but I think that like it's easy to be, excited about legal weed. I mean, I think that's the whole point of that actually, like, I think that idea that people are just excited that it's becoming legal is what drives a lot of the bad shit in the industry, because it gives cover, I think, to these companies and a lot of different people that want to exploit things, um where they're like, and it ends up being like this, like a gun to the head of so in Pennsylvania, right, like there's 12,000 arrests last year, um And so when we talk about legalization in Pennsylvania, we're like, we want all these different things. This is the way it should be, etc. And there's another side that's just like, just take whatever, because 12,000 people are getting arrested every year, and if it's just legal, all those people will stop getting arrested. And it's like the state or the corporate, whoever has the arrests, has their gun to their head, and it's like, listen, legalize the way we want it, or we're going to keep arresting all these people every year, including a dude last year, 2 years ago. This is in the book. A dude gets busted. He has like, he's like my age, whatever, has 2 kids at home, and he has like a homegrown tent in his basement. And this is in like north west Pennsylvania, like north of Pittsburgh. And I think you don't get the whole story, but it seems like maybe one of his neighbors called the cops on him or something like that. And they came in, they saw his grow tent, and even though it was like in his basement, one of the kids' toys was like near the tent. And so he was charged with a felony for growing and processing weed or whatever, but also a second felony for committing a felony in front of a minor because they found his kid's toy there. And like, that would be just devastating to the family. And it's just like, in 2 states over in Michigan, I think they may be, it's right there. That's just like a legal thing, like not even a big deal. And I was like really upset about this, and I emailed the judge in the case, and I was like, tried to plead a case for the guy. I was just like, this is gonna really whatever. The judge was like, I don't care what's going on. He like wrote me this mean email back. He's like, I don't care what's going on in their states. It's the state of Pennsylvania. You can't grow weed. Blah blah blah. And it was like Beaver County, Pennsylvania, and I was just like, this is the thing. I mean, like, this is why you have to legalize, and this is why we really need just federal legalization. Like, end this whole charade where they're allowed to put people in cages, put people behind bars, fine people, ruin their lives, etc. In one state, and then maybe 6 miles away or whatever it is over the border, right there, it's a whole nother ballgame where none of that stuff happens at all.
Yeah.
And and so like when you're under that kind of pressure to legalize, that's when you end up with these shitty laws and
apathy. I can't find it right now. If you can see, I'm scrolling, really trying to find one of your comics that I use all the time. It's about one of the iterations of safe banking. Of course, now we call it safer banking, but
yeah.
Right. Anyways, I love the contrast you painted. You were worried about, or you were maybe covering that people are worried about the idea that, it's kind of like you say, this incremental reform and take what we can get. But
Baby steps,
sometimes you get this level where it generates apathy. So I think you used Amsterdam as an example, where it's like, okay,
right,
you can get in the shops, but nobody so to the general person, they're like, what's the big fucking deal? Like, what are you talking
that's
about?
That's why if you don't get a good law the first time, if you don't get a good law the first time, it's 10 times harder to make changes later. Look at Illinois as the example.
Yeah, I know.
Look
That
how much
hurt when
trouble
you
it
said
is.
that. I was like,
I mean,
so true.
and Massachusetts is not that different. I mean, like, because Massachusetts legalized soon after. I mean, there is a little bit more small business weed in Massachusetts, a little bit, but it's not that different. Where they need to make a lot of changes. It's hard to get the political will behind it because people are just like, you could just go get weed right there. Like, why do I care now? And then you have to sit there and talk about the finer points and argue every single person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
That's
me when I
why
go and visit my parents. They're like, what are you talking about, Cole? You can buy it at the store. I'm like, no, but you don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I started the comic in the first place, because I was just like, I need to like get this out there and like have people listen to it, because it's also like so absurd that it's almost funny in a way, like where like you couldn't make this stuff up. It's just like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
straight up.
Yeah.
The comics write themselves.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, folks,
All right, I do have to hit it.
Cool. All right, folks, once again, patreon.com/legalization nation. Check out the podcast description for the Kickstarter. Support cannabis media. We'll see you in the next episode. Brian, thank you. Take care,
Thank you so
everybody.
much, Cole. Take it
Bye.
easy.